Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mate Trajanac, and welcome to iBorn FM. This is the second episode of the Behind the Office series, and in this trilogy, we focus mainly on Java and microservices through the lens of iBorn. Last week, we got the chance to hear an in-depth overview of how we use the Java technology stack and microservices, how the microservices themselves communicate between each other, where they host it, and so forth. However, in this episode, we will focus more on the business case behind it, and I will have the privilege to chat with one of our partners from Iceland. So, without further ado, please welcome Svein Jakob Pálsson. Welcome, Svein. All right.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Excellent. All right. So
let's blame this on Google.
Well, it isn't a show if there are no technical difficulties, so it can't keep us on our toes. All right,
exactly.
All right. How are you feeling, Svenny? How's
doing,
your Thursday?
It's a good Thursday in Iceland. Winter time. Cold, windy, and little sunlight. But I'm used to it.
Right. All right. Well, I hope you're ready for this episode. I think it's gonna be an interesting chat. Since last episode we got to hear from Miki, who's our technical chief officer. And we got to know a bit about the inner workings of how we use our technologies, especially Java and the microservices. So now we'll have the chance to speak maybe more about the business case, let's say. So first of all, I would like you to introduce yourselves to the audience and tell us what your role is in the whole project.
Yes, sure. So my name is Svein Pálsson. I'm the founder and CEO of GoTo. GoTo is a software company. We focus almost entirely at present at the hospitality industry. I founded it with my co-founder in 2012, and prior to that, I was actually in the financial industry. I studied financial engineering and worked and lived in New York for 6 years. I was working at Credit Suisse. And then when I moved back to Iceland, I got involved in the hospitality industry. And I'm thriving there and plan to continue there.
Excellent. Since we had a different pronunciation, you said that the company is, it's called GoDo. Can you tell us maybe a bit more about the pronunciation and what does GoDo actually mean?
Yes, sure. It's actually has a bit of a history how we came about with the name. So when we started in 2012, it was a small startup, and what we thought we were going to be doing is completely different from what we're doing today. At the time, the travel industry in Iceland was really growing and I would say booming, and it was an industry where the barrier of entry was quite low, meaning it was you didn't need to have large sums of money in order to sort of get involved in that space. Yeah. So that's how we sort of started in that area. And originally the idea was to have like a website, like an online travel agency, where you could book all the main products of the travel industry, like accommodation, rental cars, tours and activities. And the name of that website was Iceland on Sale. It's a questionable name, and in hindsight, it's a terrible name. But the idea behind it was, we had a high season in Iceland during the summer month, and then during the winter months, almost no one came to Iceland. So we were going to try to sort of spread out the tourists in Iceland over the winter months with some lucrative offers. However, what actually happened was that we realized that in order to sell the travel products, you need to have some integrations to the inventory of the suppliers, because hotels and others weren't going to go on our website, which was new and unknown, and actively, add or change their inventory whenever they got a reservation. So we then saw huge opportunities in the software space, because a lot of these smaller companies in the travel industry, like smaller guest houses, etc., didn't really have any system in place. It was only the larger hotels. So we pivoted into providing a system for them and developing a property management system. And the name Iceland on Sale, obviously didn't fit well. So we had like a naming competition within the company, and my co-founder Sverrir actually came up with the name GoDo, and it's quite simple. It's just it's two short words, go and do, which you can relate to when you're traveling. You're going somewhere and you're doing something. So that's how the name came about. We didn't, we liked the name, and we quickly realized that, people would not necessarily realize it was the combination of these two words. But for us, it doesn't really matter if you pronounce it differently or if you don't realize it's, these two words combined together. Because you can look at other companies like Google or Trello or something like that. These are made up words. So that's how the name came about.
Right, excellent. Well, you answered some of my next question as well, but I would like to know if you could share with us, of course, who your current clients are.
Yes. So we focus primarily on providing software solutions and services to hotels, guest houses, and basically anyone that's providing some form of accommodation. It can be hostels, can be vacation rentals, even tents or something like that for camping. We launched another product with iBorn, and we'll probably get to that later in this interview, 2 years ago, which is like a marketplace that links together travel agencies and hotels and guest houses. And so we also have travel agencies as our clients.
Yeah, right. Okay. And what are the main problems do you solve for them, like for your clients?
It's a great question. So initially, when we started out and when we pivoted to creating software solutions, we realized that, particularly like in Iceland, but I mean, I think this is a global thing. The bigger hotels all had, some systems in place, property management system where they have all the information about their guests and prices and products and payments, etc., in a centralized system. But once you stepped away from these bigger hotels and to the smaller players in the market, guest houses and the small operations, many of them were basically still using like Excel and even like almost just handwriting, their reservations and information about their guests. So we saw opportunities in providing software solution for those, and that really went well. We sort of swept up the market there. We had good service, a system that fulfilled their basic needs, and the price was moderate. So that's how we sort of entered the market. And then what happens, I think, almost for any software provider is you get a lot of feedback from the clients, feature requests and things like that, and you start adding more and more features to your system, and you become more and more appealing to then larger clients as well. And that's been our focus for the past, couple of years. Now we have like added like hotel chains using our systems as well.
Right. Yeah. So, because you're, as I understand, your business-to-business connection, how do you, let's say, establish that confidence that you need to keep your or retain your clients for longer periods of time?
Yeah, it's. I think one of the key difference between B2B marketing and services versus directly to the consumer is yes, you can advertise and do some marketing, but word of mouth is really important.
Right.
So if your clients are happy with the system you provide and it's reliable, and they are happy with the service as well, that's also a really important factor. You know, that you don't just provide them with the system and that they can't reach you. Then they will actually speak to others around them, because a hotel that's considering switching systems, they may go online and browse and see some different systems out there, but I think the biggest factor is always what others around them recommend. So I think word of mouth is a really important strategy for B2B.
Right. Okay. So as I mentioned in the beginning, since we're looking, let's say, we're exploring Java and microservices through the lens of iBurn, and now we're talking to you, obviously. I wanted to ask you, how did the whole GoDo and iBurn partnership start? So how did you guys first meet?
Yes. So basically, we were a small startup. We've grown, over the years. We never took outside funding, so we had to grow organically, meaning we could not just hire people unless we had the revenue to back it up.
Yeah.
And also my partner and I, we studied engineering, but we didn't study software engineering. So there was not a founder in the company that was a developer.
Right.
So we didn't really have maybe the in-house expertise and the size of a team to really try to scale up and expedite our development. And also, since we're in Iceland, and I know Macedonia is not a big country, but it is much bigger than Iceland in terms of population. We have like 340,000 people living here, and so there's a certain lack of resources available. Developers are in sort of high demand, I think, globally, and so we couldn't really necessarily compete and outbid everyone, and there was just not enough high skilled developers here as well. So we set up a plan to explore partnership with companies abroad, that had expertise and the know-how and the team to develop products with us. And we interviewed actually quite a lot of companies across many countries, because we wanted to really minimize the risk of not getting it right the first time. It's so important to establish a good partnership and having quality and reliable development done. So during that process, we stumbled on iBurn. I think it was maybe a bit of a luck. One of my coworkers, his father used to work in Skopje for a few years. So we had some connections down there.
Yeah.
And during the meetings we had, iBurn really blew us away, and I think was really unparalleled compared to the other companies we spoke with. And what really shown during those meetings was the professionalism and the experience of iBurn, and the ambition. We could really sense that like IPON was constantly trying to research and learn about and adopt to new technology advances.
Yeah. So I'm interested how you mentioned that IBORN is professional and they stood out from the crowd, but how has your, let's say, mutual trust evolved over the years? Why you're still partners is the question. I mean, the question that I'm asking. Yeah.
It's a good question. I mean, when you start out, you obviously you can't be for certain how it's gonna end up. So we started actually with a new product from scratch called Travia, which is the marketplace for hotels and travel agencies, and that product has become very successsul. It's we're still developing it together, and it's going to continue for years to come. But during just the time working together, we established a lot of trust. We learned a lot from IPORN. We've met quite a few times, both in Iceland and in Macedonia. And we also developed, friendship and the collaboration. It's really a sort of a two-way collaboration. It's not about just us coming up with ideas and IPORN implementing it. It's really two-way, and we're sort of in this together. So it's a really good partnership.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's really great to hear. I want to hear now a bit more about how that communication works out between GoDo and IBORN. So, what is your, let's say, maybe specific role into this cooperation?
Yes. So because we've really expanded the collaboration, there's actually, multiple people here at GoDo that interact actively with, with IPORN and different people and departments there.
Yeah.
My particular role, we have strategic meetings bi-weekly, and then where we share some ideas, we talk about, the technology we want to, use for it, and, the hurdles and things like that. Usually when it's something new we're developing, or new modules or software, there's some business development where we are sort of the link between, I guess, the customers and the development team, because we get all the feedback from the customers, and then it's quite an active communication, but it's also structured, which is good for everyone, so that we also have time to work in between meetings.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Or could you maybe tell us maybe a bit more about from your side, since in the previous episode we mentioned that, Mickey mentioned that the project went from a monolith architecture to microservice. So did you see any maybe particular operational changes in GoDo when you made that transition?
Yes. I mean, it's a significant transition. You don't necessarily see it, in the UI of the software, but I think the biggest factors are really the sort of a scalability factors, both in terms of the software itself. You're able to have microservices that can actually be used in multiple ways, and the service can lay foundations that will shorten future work. You don't have to constantly, like if you're doing some integrations with other systems, and you have one microservice do the communication with those, then it becomes easier and easier to add to it rather than just doing it from the scratch always. Also, I mentioned you can use the same microservice from multiple systems, which is really good. And the other thing is, because we are very ambitious in terms of what we want to develop, and we want to be at the forefront of innovation and technology. That means you want to have a bigger team to develop. But if it's monolith architecture, it's you can't just pile more and more people to it. It's going to be diminishing returns. But in a microservice model, you can have different teams working on different things, and it's sort of more scalable in that way as well.
You're right. Okay. That's great. So maybe we can bring it back more about the technology in tourism in general, or in hospitality. What would you say are the biggest changes in tourism regarding technology, or something that you could, separate from the rest?
Yes, I would say the hospitality industry is going actually through huge changes, and that's been actually going on in steps. So if I go back in time, just to the 40s or the 50s, before the computer, then the hotels, they had to handwrite things. Then you got the computer, and it was on a local server, and they could and something like a property management system started developing, but it was completely shut out from the it was completely local in a sense that you had to manually put everything in there to keep track of these centralized things. Then the next big evolution was the internet. And then you started seeing these online travel agencies like Booking.com, Expedia pop up, and there was a need to integrate those directly into the system. I guess the next step in the evolution was the cloud hosting, where you have these cloud systems, and becomes easier to integrate with other things. And then the final thing was the OpenAI revolution. Now, you can sort of integrate so many different things together, and you don't have to have one, humongous system that does everything for you. Like the legacy systems, Oracle has a system called Opera, which has been around for a long time. And we're seeing a lot of opportunities in actually sort of taking over that, we're using these newer technology advances. And that's sort of where we come in, and that's the opportunities we see going forward.
Yeah, all right. Well, you mentioned that with the microservices, they helped you have maybe more, let's say, flexibility that you otherwise wouldn't have. Now, I'm interested in what are some of the procedures maybe that iBurn has that helped you particularly express your ideas maybe better or maybe clearer?
Yes. So if there's an idea that comes from GoTo, and let's just say it's either a new module within an existing software or just a new software from scratch, we develop some kind of a business description, and where we go into details about the purpose of what we want to do, is what problems are resolving for the client, etc. Then we have sort of open discussion and idea generation with iBurn, and out of that maybe comes some kind of a system architecture that iBurn recommends, and we get sort of a technical diagram how everything talks together if it's built up on multiple microservices. Then the next step is sort of, I guess, like mock-ups. iBurn produces mock-ups of how the UI will look, and it's good to have something in front of your eyes, and to do it before you actually get into the development of the back end of the system, because it can be very expensive if you fail to how do I say, if you just sort of forget some critical component, it's not that easy necessarily to change it afterwards. Then we work with wireframes for some particular parts, and we develop a lot of user stories. The user stories are really important, and this is something we've learned from iBorn. They've sort of guided us through this procedure. And then we have weekly meetings. Things are put up in 3-week sprints. So we have a good visibility on sort of the estimated time of delivery for alpha version, beta version 0, version 1, etc.
Well, it's very interesting that the approach is kind of different. That you begin with the UX and UI first, and you see how, visually you see how everything will look like, and then begin working on the base and backend and stuff like that. So it's really refreshing to see that there's a different approach that Godot and iBorn take. You mentioned briefly about the user stories. Since they are, let's say, an essential part of working in iBorn, in how we basically specify the business requirements, and this is across all of the projects. How did they help you in particular maybe share your ideas with the team, and maybe explore how the technical team helps you in return?
It's a great question. We actually, we didn't have that level of experience and professionalism as iBorn has had in developing these processes, and so the user stories was kind of a new way for us to work at the beginning. But what you realize is, the business description of the project or the module or the system is just a top-down overview and gaining the big picture understanding. But in order to make sure you're doing the optimal workflows within the system, and making sure you have all these necessary features, and that the backend is built correctly, you need to really get into these user stories and into details. And it takes time, but it's we've seen how much better the outcome becomes. So I think I don't know if this is done in other companies, but I think this is one of the best ways to ensure the quality of the end product.
Of course. Right. So since you have a vast experience in hospitality in general, and iBorn as a company is a software development company, how did you bridge that gap, or how, let's say, what challenges that you, what are some of the challenges that you faced while sharing your ideas? Because there are vastly different worlds with different terminology and stuff like that. So basically what I'm saying is, how did you help teach iBorn, and how did iBorn teach you about its business background?
I think it's natural that whenever you're doing something in a new industry, you don't know all the terminology and things like that, and so to begin with, we try to explain more in detail things that maybe in our industry is common sense, but the way, because iBorn is so involved in the whole development phase, including the idea generation itself, they quickly became sort of experts in our space as well. And then today, it almost feels like some of them have been working at hotels themselves. So I think that's something over time, it just sort of solved itself.
Yeah.
Regarding on the flip side, like regarding how iBurn, structures and has its processes in development, that was also a learning curve for us. But I sometimes ask them, the people I talk with at iBurn to remind me if I'm not delivering my part of the equation, because it's a two-way partnership. If I don't do my work, it's harder for them to do theirs. We learned a lot along the way, and it's also about trust. Us trusting that given the experience and the quality of everyone at iBurn, trust that they are just much better at these processes than we are, and we should just adopt them.
Yeah. Well, okay, so since this is a topic that we cannot escape, and this is the reality we live in, I'm interested in how, let's say, what are some of the challenges that you faced this year because of the COVID epidemic, since maybe one of the most hard-hit industries is that precisely tourism and hospitality.
Yes, I mean it's had a huge impact on us, particularly from the revenue side. It's weird to be in this position, because as a software company, you always have a lot of things to do and things you want to develop, and so from everyday work, it's equally busy for us, but our clients, are obviously suffering a lot. The hotels and the guest houses and travel agencies. Some of them, won't even survive, and some of them may struggle to pay their bills. But we've been surprised how people have managed to remain in the business, and there's a lot of opportunities that arise. There are going to be some changes. I think like touchless processes are going to become more popular. Where the guest doesn't have to necessarily interact with someone, personally when they're checking in, or they don't have to touch a screen to check in, that someone else already touched, things like that. So we're trying to, position ourselves well when we get over this COVID scenario. But one thing that's good about tourism is, I think, it's an industry that will never go away. I think the human being has a natural need to travel and explore and see different things and take a vacation and things like that. So it's not like an industry where you're worried that it may not come back.
Yeah, that's true.
And actually, we've actually just increased the development and the partnership with iBurn, and we're trying to do more things right now, because we do see some of our competitors, they're weak currently, and they may be really reducing their capacity, and one of them actually went out of business, so we got a lot of clients from that. So there's some positives in this as well.
Wow. That's really impressive. How maybe we can talk about how the platform, let's say, help GoDo during this whole process. What are maybe some of the solutions that some of your clients found through the platform?
So you're talking about the software itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I think whenever you have a software solution, you're trying to solve some kind of problems. That's how you manage to make it successful. So our main product, which is a property management system, it's a centralized tool for the accommodation operation, and there's two main things you want the system to do for you. One is to have the ability to increase your revenue, and that means having integrations and access to all your sales pipelines, and have that automated in terms of the inventory and prices you're pushing out and the reservations you're receiving. And the other part is to reduce cost and unnecessary manual work. So you try to focus on automation and have the system do as much work as it can for you. One of the products we developed with iBorn, Travia, it's sort of it's quite a unique product, and we don't really have other similar products out there. And what we were solving there is, even though people could get their Booking.com or Expedia reservations directly to the system, they were still getting manual reservations from travel agencies. Literally just an email sent to the hotel. Hi, do you have available 2 rooms in 3 months? And then waiting 12 hours for a response from the hotel. No, we're fully booked. It was a ridiculous process. So Travia marketplace really solved that issue, and now it's fully automated. Travel agency just makes a reservation, and it directly flows into the property management system of the hotel. And now during this COVID crisis, where a lot of hotels have had to lay off a lot of people, unfortunately, it really helps that you have systems that don't require a lot of manual work, because they don't really have the hands anymore.
Yeah, that sounds quite sensible. Maybe to finish off this segment, what is the future of GoDo? In which areas do you see it, let's say, evolving?
It's a great question. So we are currently exclusively in the hospitality industry, but we've envisioned that it could expand outside of that industry over time. Our current goals are to be at the forefront in that space, and to increase our global presence. We have some clients in other countries, and we see a lot of opportunities there. But one of the great things about the work we've been doing with iBorn, and particularly this microservice structure, is that some of our software solutions don't necessarily have to be exclusively for the travel industry. So you can reuse some of these microservices, and if you just take out something specific to traveling, what you have is inventory or reservation system where you have some buyer that's ordering the product and a seller that's selling it, and then you can expand it to other areas. So while I don't know exactly what we'll do, but I have a feeling that in the next 2 or 3 years we might dip our toes into other areas.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's great to hear. Now I want to transition maybe to the Q&A section. Just to remind our listeners, you can leave your questions on the Facebook page of this event. So go to our Facebook page and you will see some directions. And also you can send us an email at fm@iborn.net. So fm@iborn.net. While we're waiting for the questions to come in, I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned that you have been to Macedonia a few times now, what were the places that you visited, and what were your first impressions when you came here?
I mean, I think a part of our partnership with iBorn and how much we work together, we do these meetings online, and we have a very good structure in our communication, but it's also important to meet face to face, so we've been quite a few times to Skopje, where we've done some workshops together, and I've been there 1 or 2 weeks at a time. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't been able to to travel to Macedonia since late February this year, and but when we've been in Macedonia, we've done some activities and had some fun as well. It's not only about work. So we've traveled a little bit outside of Skopje. I didn't have the opportunity to go to Ohrid yet, but my coworker, he went there with Iborn, and he loved it. So I look forward to that. But I went to the border town with the casinos with Iborn. Do you remember the name of it?
Gevgelia.
Once again, Gevgelia. Yeah, it's a hard name for me to pronounce.
No
worries. But we had a lot of fun there, and we also went to some vineyards. Believe it was Bovin. Obviously, when I'm in Macedonia, I drink, a lot of rakia.
Of course.
We've been, in Skopje. I've been up on the hill, for what's the name of the hill after the mountain? Vodna. So, but I like to explore more of Macedonia over time, and I hope COVID will end soon.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we hope too. I think visiting Ohrid, it's going to be a fun experience. It's one of the most recognizable cities in our country, and it's quite beautiful. I mean, it has a lot of history. It is a rich history. There are very nice places to visit. So yeah, I too can't wait for this pandemic to end so you can finally come here. I think one of the first questions that Srna is going to ask is, what's your favorite wine, Macedonian wine, that is, if you can remember?
Oof. That's a good question. Well, my favorite wine, I mean, I guess it's alcohol more than wine, but it's homemade rakia.
All right. Okay.
It was really good, and I wish I knew how to make it myself.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a bit of tradition in making rakia, but since us in our family we don't do it, maybe I can ask some of my coworkers to share that knowledge with you. Yeah. Okay, so we're having the first questions coming in. A listener from Skopje asks, which part of the project or some specific business requirement was the hardest to communicate with or to explain to the team? And obviously, how did you overcome that obstacle?
Well, to begin with, when Iborn wasn't familiar with the hospitality industry or at least, the industry, what we are experiencing. I'm sure there were times when we might have misunderstood something, but that after a few months that sort of went away. Since then, I honestly don't really have a particular thing in mind. That's the only thing I can sort of think of. If something pops up, I'll mention it later.
Sure. Okay. All right. The next question is, since GoDo is a business-to-business system, how you and the development team from Iborn, that is, how do you understand the users' challenges and needs?
Well, I think most of it you get from basically feedback with the clients, and one of the, I think it's sometimes easier when you have a new product to start with simpler and smaller clients because they have less maybe requirements and then built on top of that. So when we started out and we were servicing, let's say, smaller, guest houses and things like that, we didn't really understand the needs of a big hotel chain. But over time, as you get a little bit bigger clients, you get feedback and you can see what's missing and things like that, and you start to understand it better. And also, we do research with iBorn, where we try to be a little bit open about if we're trying to do something in an area we're not yet experts in. So that has helped. We find some good research papers. We even test out other systems, and this is sort of a two-way collaboration. It's not just me testing something, taking a demo. It's people at iBorn as well. Mm-hmm. So we really work together on overcoming those type of hurdles. One thing also that's good to keep in mind when I mentioned feedback from clients is, you can't develop everything they ask for, because some of them are asking for some features that may only be relevant for them, or a very small subset, and they may even have developed some bad habits. So they're trying to do some or ask for some features or work processes that don't really make sense. So this is an area where actually we've learned a lot from iBorn. Is to take it with a grain of salt and really think about and discuss these feature additions beforehand, and if we want to do them, and if so, when, and maybe we package some of them together. Right. So it's really has to be a very structured process, and I think that's where iBorn has had a lot of expertise in the past.
Yeah. All right, the next question is, since this is one of the most affected industry right now, how did iBorn prove that the technology could be a big leap forward for fighting COVID?
Well, I don't know how related this is, but when initially the COVID started, it was always a shock for us, because all of our clients are in the tourism industry, and fortunately, things have not been as bad as we feared in terms of bankruptcies and things like that. But one thing we wanted to do was to try to do some kind of an initiative that could maybe bring in some revenue and also show support to our clients. And in collaboration with iBorn, we set up sort of a voucher campaign under the and we branded it as it was called in Icelandic. It was Strengthen Iceland, and it was a way to encourage the local people to travel domestically during this period. So we set up this voucher campaign and an online and a website where you could buy a gift certificate, for approximately 100 euros. Yeah. And you could use it at any of like 300 or 400 hotels and guest houses across the country. And this was like a project that we wanted to get out there fast, and iBorn came up with very creative solutions there, and to make it a seamless reservation booking process. So you purchased the gift card, and then you could go and select hotels across the country, and we used one of the products we developed with iBorn, Travia, as the inventory and booking portal for that gift card. So that was really it was a really positive thing for us. Both we got revenues in at a time where we needed it, but also it was a very positive PR campaign that we were actually trying to do something for the industry that's outside of what we normally do. Yeah.
Well, that's very creative and commendable. The next question is how you and the development team avoid the standard problems when it comes to communication.
That's a good question. I would say, iBorn, has been, in this business for a long time, so I think they established, very good processes for it. Even before we started working together. But it's also something I think that evolves, and we have a very open and honest trust and relationship. So if we feel like something isn't coming across, or vice versa, if IPON feels like too many people from our side are interfering in the same thing, a lot of these type of things, then we just talk about it, and you try to reiterate and optimize that process. We have chat groups. We adopted Telegram because that's what you use in Macedonia, and so we actually discontinued other chat softwares that we used internally here in Iceland, so that we are only using one platform. And then we've sort of optimized what should be used, what is chat relevant and what is meeting relevant, so that so you don't have information in many different places, and you don't have you don't have too many documents for the same project and things like that. So it's I think it's a constant evolution, and because we're working together on so many fronts, it's not only software development. We're also working together on business intelligence and machine learning. So that means we have different people working with different people and things like that. So it's ongoing, but it's we had a very strong foundation from IPON to start with.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The next question is the next two questions actually are slightly more technical, but when when implementing the agile methodology in everyday work, what were the hardest parts from your side that you needed to adapt to?
I think there's two main things. One is we had a very small team in Iceland, and my background isn't in development, so I didn't have the experience in that area. So we had to learn a lot from IPON. And the other thing is, the things that we did have, were structured differently. We did have some agile methodology, but we were using different platforms, and we were not using it as extensively. So we kind of, over time, we just sort of migrated to everything IPON uses. So we had to sort of change that and make sure our internal processes were in line with that. And then it's also about resource allocation on our end. Making sure the people who are involved in these development projects have the time. So because we're not a huge company, we're like 20 people outside of Macedonia, then we tend to be doing a lot of different things, and then something can suffer. Like if you're supposed to be involved in a development project and you're not giving yourself the time to do it, it clearly suffers. So we've had to be more disciplined on our end in order to be able to fulfill that.
Yeah. Well, I think discipline is one of the key points in the whole agile methodology, right? So
for sure.
The next question is, how do you actually handle the process and the feedback from the client side, especially regarding synchronization with external systems, something that your clients or the users can't actually see?
Yeah. Okay, I'll try to answer these two parts. I'll get to the synchronization part in my second answer. So basically, before we started working with iBurn, I think it was a big mess in terms of how we processed client feedback. It was almost like, our customer support got a feedback from the client and they walked into the developer's room and requested something, and it was just like very unstructured, and we didn't do the required planning for doing feature changes and things like that. So some were poorly executed, and we had very little visibility in terms of what the actual priority of projects should be. Now we have much more of a filtering process. So the feedback usually comes via account managers or the customer support, and it funnels to like I guess you could call like a product or project owner or product owner. Someone who's the main responsible person and go-to with regards to the development project that's done by iBurn. And that person, and I'm that person in some cases. Yeah. I take the feedback, and I can decide if we want to actually do it, and if we want to do it, then I just have to put it in the project log and assign some priority on it. I have to put in some kind of business description, describe what the feature or the problem, or if it's a bug, what it's about, and I have to sort of also manage the expectations of the person that came in with the feedback. Like, I can say, yes, we plan to do this, but there's no timeline, or we have not decided if we want to do this. So we try to filter it a little bit out so that you don't interrupt the development team, with constant bombardment of issues. And then we have meetings with iBurn where we sort of go over the priorities, and that's also sort of a two-way thing. Like, I might think something is really important, but I get a feedback from someone at iBurn that, like, if we do this, then this is going to be delayed and things like that. Right. Regarding, these integrations with other systems, this is also, it's a good question, and how we get the customer feedback there. The customer, in many cases, doesn't realize where our system, ends and the other system begins. Yeah. So we actually get a lot of, support tickets from clients about things that are not really our, issue. So it's a very tough line to define. What should we still help the customer with, and what should we just say, hey, you just need to contact the other company, because the customer sometimes doesn't realize where the support should lie depending on the issue. So it's an ongoing thing, really. And in some cases, we've sort of realized that even though it technically shouldn't be on our side, we may feel like it's just easier for us to deal with it sometimes. So we might actually do some assistance outside of our scope, just because we feel like it's actually just less work for us. Otherwise, it's going to be emails back and forth, and more confusion. So, but at the same time, you have to draw some lines, because otherwise it just becomes too expensive for us to operate a support team that's spending so much time on assisting the clients basically in another software or a solution by someone else.
Right. Okay. Since I see that it's 2:00, we will have a few more final questions. Or 1:00 Icelandic time. Yeah. Were you forced to change priorities? That's regarding software development because of the changing times, and if yes, how did your team manage to handle it?
So you're talking about because of COVID? Yeah. I mean, I think obviously something like COVID, it has a big impact, and it can result in big, changes in priorities. But I think just overall, if you're doing sort of multiple things and have multiple products and things like that you're developing, you're constantly in a battle of where to prioritize. And so that never, I think, goes away. Because you see opportunities in many areas. You want to keep some customers happy by adding some features. You see huge potential for new customers if you add this feature and things like that. Or you can get a big deal with a big client if you add this. It's a lot of different components to it. COVID. For sure, has maybe exaggerated this a bit, but again, like in terms of these priorities, it's really about it's a collaboration of how to decide these things. As I mentioned before, it's happened more than once and more than twice that like I may try to push for some kind of a rearrangement of priorities, and then I get feedback from iBorn where like they bring to light some points that I didn't think of, and it suddenly what I thought was a good idea of changing priorities wasn't, and how you can try to fulfill many things at once. I know with iBorn, the developers often work at two projects at the same time, and so it's when you prioritize things, it's not as simple as like, oh, now suddenly everybody's going to do that. That's obviously not possible. But I think the approach and having, doing sometimes more than one project, I think it's worked really well because it also keeps people maybe on their toes and fulfills their ambition and motivations and things like that.
Okay, one last final question, because I always want to end my shows in a, let's say, lighter note or maybe light-hearted note. What are some of the, can you share with us some of the most interesting or funny moments while you were visiting Macedonia?
Yeah, sure. I probably have a few. I mean, when we're in Macedonia, we have a lot of fun. We obviously work hard, and it's really beneficial to do these workshops together. But we also have a lot of fun. We go out, to your restaurants, eat a lot, sometimes drink a lot. But one thing we always do is we play football together on Thursdays with iBorn. I can't remember the name of the field in Skopje, but it's outside and it's a lot of fun, and it's sort of a tradition. And after the football match, we go to this little restaurant around the corner from the soccer field, and it's not a fancy place. It's the opposite. It's like what we call a hole in the wall, but it's a lot of fun in there, and I think they sell the food by the kilo or something like that. So we get like a big plate of different meats and things like that. So this one time, it may have been the last time. No, maybe the second last time I was in Skopje. Yeah, it was probably a year ago or so. Then I was there with two of my coworkers, and one of them sweated. He was the only one not drinking. He's been sober for 9 years because of, I don't know, bad habits with alcohol in the past. And so he was the only one not drinking at the restaurant, and he ordered like a Fanta. And so he got a glass with ice cubes, and we were all eating the same food. We had a lot of rakia, beer, and he was the only one that actually got really, really sick. And
Oh.
come to think of it, it was the same trip as when we went to Gegelia
Gergelia, yeah.
and for the casino, and he was there, in the bathroom, the entire time, I think. So basically, what I think happened was he got, kind of like a food poisoning, but not from the food, but probably from the ice cubes in his Fanta. So what we learned from that is like, always drink alcohol.
Yeah, of course. Okay, one final question that just came in. How does Iborn make you better?
That's a great question. I mean, it's opened a lot of doors for us. Iborn, they're really experts in their field. They are very up to date with technology advances and taking advantage of recent development. And what we shared as well is the ambition to not just do a system, but to do the best system and be a leader in our field. So I think it has really allowed us to match. We provide really good service to our clients, but to be able to match the quality of our development and our softwares to that as well. I think without Iborn, we just wouldn't have the capacity to do so. So I think it's been really a win-win situation, and the partnership and the level of collaboration, it's grown tremendously. I think it's been 3 years since we got to know each other, and it started with one project, and I honestly don't know how many projects we're working on today. It's probably like 10 different projects.
Yeah.
So it's we wouldn't be the company we are today without them, and hopefully this will continue for years to come.
Wow. Well, I think we couldn't have ended on a better note. So for now, I just want to thank you for maybe having an hour and 10 minutes conversation with me.
My pleasure.
I feel very privileged that I get to have a chat with some of our partners. I had a great time. And now
me too.
I would like to give you some final words, or if you have any, I don't know, anything you would like to share with the audience or something like that.
Sure. I really miss, traveling to Macedonia. It's been, it's getting a bit frustrating how COVID is really, stretching out. At the beginning, I was hoping it was going to be over by the summertime, but clearly that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And so normally I think I travel maybe 3 times a year to Skopje. And this year we actually, because we're working together on so many different things, more people were going to be joining me or traveling, maybe separately. And so this is something, I can't wait for this to happen again, and also for Iborn to come back to Iceland. There have been 2 trips so far, and it's I miss you guys.
Well, thank you very much for those kind of words. Once again, I would like to thank you for dedicating some time and having this conversation with me, since I think it's quite good that we started this project, and we're just trying to raise awareness on how we do things in Iborn and share that with the world. So it's I think it's a win-win for everyone. So yeah.
Yes.
I hope you have a nice afternoon and you enjoy the weekend. That's not so far.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I hope that we will stay in contact after the
sure.
show.
Yeah, pleasure talking with you.
All right, thank you very much. See you next time then.
Likewise. Yep, bye-bye.
Bye. Тоа беше Свеин од Исланд. Се надевам дека имавте можност подобро да се запознаете и со некои од нашите партнери и со бизнис стратегијата како оди во позадина, нешто што е, да кажам, привилегија, е тешко да се види општо вака кога работат фирми. Јас сум Мати Тројачанец. Вие слушавте Behind the Offices на iBoran FM. Ви посекувам и вам пријатно четврточко попладне и уживајте во викендот. Голем поздрав и од мене.